What kind of neighbor calls Child Protective Services on a family just for letting their kids play in their own backyard? That's the question I was wrestling with 2 weeks after moving into our new home, when Linda, draped in a garish leopard print robe, stood at her fence, screaming like she was auditioning for a soap opera. "Your kids are a menace!" she bellowed, her coffee mug trembling in her grip, startling my son Liam so bad he dropped his juice box. We'd barely unpacked, and here she was, dialing CPS like it was her morning cardio. What she didn't know: I'm a federal child welfare investigator. Her call didn't just land on some random dick, it landed on mine. The house was a modest dream, a slice of land with a big fenced yard, tall oaks, and space for my kids, Sophie and Liam, to run wild after years cooped up in the city. Sophie, 8, was painting rocks to make a garden path. Liam, 6, kept begging for a dog, and I'd promised one once we fixed the fence. It was supposed to be our fresh start, quiet nights, kids sleeping soundly, me finally cracking open a book again. I even hung a wooden swing from the biggest tree. Then Linda showed up. I first caught her spying over the fence, her neck craned like she was part vulture. I gave a friendly wave, she didn't. Just a tight-lipped smirk before vanishing. That was our hello. Over the next few days, she turned it up a notch, coughing loudly when the kids laughed too hard, levying notes about my hazardous garden hose, even claiming my mailbox's blue paint broke some HOA rule. I checked the bylaws, no such rule existed. But Linda didn't care about facts. One morning, I was fixing a trellis when Liam bolted out barefoot, chasing a butterfly with Sophie trailing, while vying a net she'd rigged from a hanger and old fabric. It was pure, messy kid joy. Then Linda stormed down her driveway, phone in hand, shouting she was calling CPS for unsupervised said children. I laughed, thinking she was bluffing. But I heard her. Dangerous tools, neglect, unsafe environment. I glanced at Liam, now sporting a butterfly like a crown, and Sophie, giggling in the flower bed. Neglect? This was absurd. But absurd turned sinister. I know the system I work for. False reports can haunt families, levying flags on files, forcing interviews, stressing kids. Linda wasn't concerned for my children, she wanted control. The next day, Sophie wandered into the kitchen, puzzled. "A lady asked if you ever yell," she said. "I told her only when you burn toast." Liam chimed in, flashing a sticker shaped like a badge. My stomach dropped. A caseworker had questioned my kids while I was at the store, without my consent. That's not just a violation, it's a gut punch. I drove to the CPS regional office, not as the VYD the dad, but the VYD Carter, federal investigator. I didn't flash my title like a weapon, I just requested the report on my address. It was thin, vague phrases like accessible tools and yard clutter. No evidence of harm, just enough to raise eyebrows. Back home, I caught Linda peering again, smirking like she'd won. I waved, but this time my smile said something else. "I've seen your report, and I'm keeping score." Sophie asked that night if we were in trouble. "No," I said, meaning it, but knowing this was war. Linda had no idea she'd picked a fight with someone who trained caseworkers to spot lies. The kids started hesitating. Sophie asked if playing by the treehouse was bad. Liam glanced at the fence before laughing. Linda's intimidation was working, and that lit a fire in me. I had to act, but carefully. One misstep could look like revenge, and that's what she wanted a reaction to twist. I called the caseworker who'd cited, keeping it professional. I said I was reviewing the report for inconsistencies. She paused, recognizing my name, then admitted the call was anonymous, flagged urgent because Linda claimed she heard a child screaming for help. That was a lie so bold it could have cost me my kids if the wrong agent showed up. My blood ran cold. I installed 2 outdoor cameras that night, angled to catch the fence where Linda loved to lurk. If she wanted to play dirty, I'd have proof. The next morning, Animal Control rolled up, saying they got a complaint about our aggressive dog. I blinked. "What dog?" "Liam's been begging," but we don't have one." The officers left, embarrassed. Later, my neighbor Ms. Clara stopped by with a casserole and a whisper. She'd overheard Linda bragging to an HOA buddy that she'd fix us, maybe get the kids sent somewhere quieter. My jaw tightened. This wasn't just about me anymore. I started a file. Every VY sit, every call, every HOA rule Linda broke herself, trash bins out late, too many lawn gnomes. I reached out to colleagues discreetly. One warned that repeated false reports could be harassment. Another said if I tied Linda to the complaints, it could be federal misconduct. The stakes were high, but so was my resolve. Then I caught her on camera, sneaking along the fence at 10:30 p.m., planting a motion sensor to spy on us. I found it by the planter, dead battery and all, but the intent was clear. I left it on her doorstep without a word. Message sent, "I see you." Linda didn't stop. A cop showed up at 8 p.m., saying someone reported. Screaming. He looked exhausted, sat at my table while Liam colored and Sophie read. 5 minutes later, he left, glancing at Linda's house. "It's not coming from here," he said. She was digging her own grave, each call building a pattern. My colleague flagged another anonymous complaint against Methry in 2 weeks, all baseless. It was time to flip the script. I called the state CPS director, laying out everything: the reports, the censor, the cameras, the neighbor testimonies. He revealed Linda had done this before, DRIVYing out a single mom 2 years ago over a fence dispute. They hadn't flagged her then, but my EVY Denke changed that. They launched a re-VYEW of her complaint history. Meanwhile, Ms. Clara warned me Linda was spreading rumors, calling me unstable and scary. Classic projection. I smiled at the irony. She was the one unraveling. My friend in digital forensics traced the complaint's IP to Linda's home. 2 matched her DVYC ID. It was no longer guesswork, it was fact. I sent the EVY Denke to CPS Compliance, who scheduled a formal re-VYEW. Neighbors started talking MS. Clara, Tom with his toddler, others who'd been silenced by Linda's threats. They met in my yard, swapping stories of her bullying, fake CPS calls, city inspections, mailbox paint disputes. It was never about rules, it was about power. They signed statements, ready to fight back. I drafted a complaint to the HOA, attaching the censor VY Dale, IP traces, and neighbor accounts. It was surgical, every claim backed by proof. I mailed it certified, CCING their legal counsel. At the HOA meeting, I didn't yell. I presented the reports, the footage, the police memo calling her calls unsubstantiated. Neighbors spoke a mess. Clara on the threats, Tom on the CPS lie about his kid. Linda sat silent, her smirk gone. The room felt heavy, but alive. The board promised a decision in 48 hours, but we all knew. 2 days later, the letter came. Linda was out, removed from the HOA for ethical violations. CPS placed her on a monitored list. Any future report would be scrutinized. Her reign was over. The neighborhood exhaled. Kids played louder, parents lingered on porches. Linda's house went quiet, blinds shut, a for sale sign sprouting by her hedge. She'd built her empire on fear, and when it crumbled, she had nothing left. One night, an ensign note arrived. "I went too far. I'm sorry." Her handwriting. I filed it, not for spite, but to close the chapter. The kids bounced back. Sophie strung lights on the treehouse. Liam planned a backyard sleepover. The block threw a party, with lemonade, glow sticks, and a MOVYE on a garage wall. Linda watched from her porch, a shadow behind the screen. I didn't wave. She didn't glare. She was just there, irrelevant. As I sat under the treehouse lights, Sophie curled up beside me, asking if the mean lady was done. "She's out of power," I said. Liam ran up, flashing a bug in a jar like it was gold. I hugged them tight, the storm now a memory. The backyard wasn't just a yard anymore. It was where we fought, where truth won, where my kids learned no one could steal their joy. Linda thought she could break us. Too bad I knew the system better than she ever would.